Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Thursday Night Thunderdome. Yes, it is the place where all the legal stories that otherwise were forgotten, otherwise abandoned, otherwise maligned, come together once a week in one place for you and me to experience together so that we do not forget these otherwise forgettable stories. We must understand what is happening in the law because so much is happening all the time, everywhere, and we must figure out a way to keep track. And how do we do that? We do that with the miracle that is the Thunderdome. We begin in Mergerland, where Kroger and Albertsons are looking to merge, but regulators have some issues, as they do when large companies join, to make sure that it is not unfairly restricting the marketplace. So let's learn a little bit more about some of this merger, and a little bit more about what is going on. The supermarket chain Kroger and Albertson said Monday they will sell more of their stores in an effort to quell the federal government's concerns about the proposed merger. The companies now plan to sell 579 stores in markets where they overlap to C&S Wholesale Grocers, a New Hampshire grocery supplier and operator, for $2.9 billion. Under the divestiture plan, C&S had planned to purchase 413 stores for $1.9 billion. So these stores, sometimes they're in the same market. There are stores right next to each other. And the problem is, well, if these stores merge, then there might not be some competition in some places. And that's not necessarily ideal. So the federal regulators have said, how about you sell some of your businesses in places where, you'd be the only game in town, so that you're not the only game in town. And so they are selling their stores to C&S Wholesale Grocers for some monies, so that there's a divestiture to try to keep the market even. It is unclear if the new plan will satisfy regulators. In February, the U.S. Trade Commission sued to block the $24.6 billion merger between the grocery giants, saying the lack of competition would lead to higher grocery prices and lower wages for workers. The Federal Trade Commission also said the initial plan to divest 413 stores to C&S was inadequate, and it would give C&S a hodgepodge of unconnected stores and brands, leaving it ill-equipped to compete with the combined stores. So one of the things is, C&S has its own market strategy, as you would expect. And while having these stores might be nice, they might be disconnected in some ways because they're just kind of wherever they happen to be, as opposed to where C&S wanted them to be. And so that might be a problem through supply chains or otherwise to keep the stores functioning properly. Also, the stores are not built the way C&S might like their stores. So they might have to do remodeling or other things, and that might pose problems. So they are looking into the issue. Under the updated plan, Kroger would sell its Hagen banner to C&S. C&S would also license the Albertson banner in California and Wyoming, and the Safeway brand in Arizona and Colorado. C&S would gain access to some private label brands in stores. Under the proposal, C&S would keep all the stores open and honor any of the existing agreements that might respect those particular stores. We are confident that this expanded divestiture program will provide the stores supporting assets and expert operators needed to ensure the stores continue to operate successfully to serve their communities for many generations to come, said C&S, who is part of this plan. Kroger and Albertson has announced their planned merger in October of 2022. The companies say it's necessary so they can better take on companies like Walmart, Amazon, and other bigger rivals. And that is what is proceeding there. Plus, Kroger, of course, also trying to deal with other issues, particularly as it relates to OxyContin. And because they were getting whacked around that recently. So some other issues that are dealing with that. So that is what's going on in proposed merger land at the grocery store. Nice to see that the FTC appears to be taking this seriously. So that is plus. That is plus. So we'll see how that is all going. And that is that end of that story. Well, hello, my friends. Thank you for turning into the Thunderdome. I'm glad you're all here. I had a nice stream with Destiny earlier today where we covered some of the Supreme Court oral arguments. I'm looking forward to covering them in much more depth probably tomorrow. That will be fun. And also, I am looking at the possibility of trying to do more video on demand and less live streaming. Now, I was talking to Nick Rekieta about this recently because I was talking to him as one does. And he pointed out to me quite correctly that sometimes it is not successful for a channel to try to do both. And sometimes those numbers cannot compete with each other when you try to do both live streaming and video on demand. And some people have actually split their channels in half to do one in live streaming and one in video on demand because of the way the algorithm deals with that. Now, some creators out there seem to be able to do both. So it's not like necessarily a universal rule, but apparently it is somewhat of a known rule, or it's a known concern. So I'm contemplating the possibility of potentially dramatically shrinking my live streaming in favor of edited videos. And the videos would be anywhere from about 3 minutes long to about 10 minutes long and cover more topical stories of the day. And Tony and I were in our chat, in our mod chat, designing a thumbnail for this idea. And I will show you the thumbnail because I want to share with you about some of these things. And so this thumbnail would be more of a universal thing, or it would be like the format for a universal thing. So I will show you. Yeah, Premiere, I've never really had success with Premiere, but Premiere is an option. So this is sort of like a thumbnail design I'm considering moving to. And so what we would do here is we would use Midjourney to generate a white background, a white textured background, so it provides a little bit of color. So I think I literally typed white background into Midjourney, and this was one of the backgrounds. So like every thumbnail would be white, and it would have some big faces on it and some, large text, and that would kind of be it. So that's sort of an idea. And I think the red and black with the black and red turned out really well as well, and sort of how that looks. So that is something I am contemplating doing. And so this thumbnail would be kind of what we would do for all the thumbnails going forward, right? Obviously you'd replace the faces and you might move the text a little bit around and stuff like that. But like this idea with like the red and black on white with some large faces and the logo back there somewhere could be good. So I just thought I'd share with you. That was what I was considering. All right. I appreciate that you like interacting with me in chat. I appreciate that too. I do like interacting with you guys in chat too. But, I do have to see if I can make the channel grow. And it might be time just to try to do something else and see if we can make the channel grow with more video on demand. So, all right. In transgender news, Seattle Children's Hospital will not have to provide trans patient records to Texas under a settlement. So one of the things that Texas is concerned about, like many other states, is compliance with its law when it comes to medicine. And Texas is concerned that maybe the transing of the children is happening and they'd like access to certain medical records. And of course, there's some lawsuits about that, and apparently they've reached a settlement relating to some of this. So let's learn a little bit more. The Texas Attorney General will drop his quest to seize transgender patient information from a Seattle Children's Hospital, according to a court settlement Paxton's office announced on Monday. And if you say to yourself, doesn't that violate HIPAA? The HIPAA is not God. Okay, HIPAA is the Health Insurance Patient Portability Act. And yes, it deals with how records are kept confidential by hospitals. But confidentiality is not absolute, and HIPAA itself has many, many exceptions, to which I am not an expert. But yes, under some circumstances, they can get access to the medical records. HIPAA says how to do that in some parts. So there are ways to get access to medical records, especially when you're looking at like third-party medical records, right? If it would be different if the government was coming after me and trying to get access to my medical records, right? They're prosecuting me because I have an individual privacy interest in that. But if they're going after my medical records because they're going after the hospital, that's like a third-party thing, and that also has different rules because the privacy interest is different. Anyways, Seattle Children's Hospital officials have said in sworn depositions the facility does not have staff who treat trans kids in person within Texas or remotely from Washington. As part of the settlement, the hospital withdrew its business license in Texas, though it wasn't immediately clear Monday for what purpose that license was used. So the Seattle Children's Hospital had a business license in Texas for some reason, and they're like, well, we'll withdraw our business license in Texas because we're from Seattle. So, fair enough. The agreement comes as Paxton and the hospital faced off over a November investigation opened by the Attorney General 2 months after a new Texas law banned the use of puberty blockers and hormone therapies for transgender youth, and thank God for that. Seattle Children was at least one of 2 clinics that received demand letters relating to this from Paxton's office. Those requests for information were among several recent state and local legal maneuvers in which Texas conservative movement is testing how far it can extend abortion, which, by the way, is as far as they want, and transgender restrictions beyond state lines. Well, they can restrict it insofar as you are attempting to reach into Texas. That would be the restriction. So if there are patients here and you're trying to do telemedicine with them, Texas has an interest in that. So, because you're now practicing medicine across state lines. And Texas has an interest in that. So that would be how. That would be the line. That would be the line. Are you practicing medicine within Texas? It's pretty easy, actually. Texas legislatures passed the ban on the mutilation of the kids, despite opposition from doctors and advocates who argue the mutilation of the kids is life-saving for transgender youth who face higher rates of suicide attempt. And anytime they want to stop blackmailing me on suicide, I'd be really happy about that. And mental health problems than their cisgender peers. Over the last several years, Republicans in Texas have also restricted transgender youth from playing on sports teams that align with their gender identity, in other words, not their sex, and tried to limit which bathrooms trans people can use in public because that's a problem too. Paxton's office is also in a legal battle over whether or not the state could open child abuse investigations into parents who provide their children with transition-related care before the state's ban went into effect, which would be tricky because if it was legal, it's a little bit difficult to argue it's child abuse, although not impossible. It is possible to abuse your children even if it's legal. But obviously it's trickier. It depends on the details. Suspecting that Seattle's children was providing youth and children with the blockers or the hormones, the Attorney General's office sent the healthcare system an investigative subpoena demanding patient records of Texas residents who had received care. Because it looks like you might be intruding into our state. The AG said in court filings it was investigating the hospital for potentially violating Texas's Deceptive Trade Practices Act because you're trying to do things within Texas. Last week's argument demonstrated how the hospital in Paxton have satisfactorily compromised and settled all matters of dispute, which is perfectly fine by me. That works for me. Paxton sent a nearly identical request to a Georgia-based telehealth clinic, which said it stopped servicing Texas youth after transition care. Great. Stay out of our state. Stay out of our state. Thank you. And that is the end of that. All right. In protesters being arrested for effing around and finding out news, some students are getting arrested for their anti-Israel protests, which I think remains stupid. The protests, what they're protesting for. I think it's incredibly stupid. And they're getting arrested for the stupid. All right. The University of Southern California has canceled a graduation ceremony as dozens are arrested for anti-war protests. The University of Southern California canceled its main graduation ceremony Thursday, and dozens of more college students were arrested at other campuses nationwide as protest against the Israeli-Hamas war continues to spread. Okay, guys. Let's keep this simple. Time, place, manner restriction, particularly colleges, right? You can protest, but you can't disrupt the school. You can't disrupt the operation of the school. So if you want the quick and dirty, you can't disrupt the function of the government. You can protest it, you just can't disrupt it because other people want to take advantage of those services, right? So that's the thing. Time, place, manner restrictions, when, where, how. And these students were not playing nice within the rules. And, so they got arrested. College students across the U.S. are worried about ongoing protests that could disrupt plans for ceremonies next month. Some universities called in police to break up the demonstrations, resulting in scuffles and arrests, while others appeared content to wait out the protests as the final days of semesters ticked down. Arrest them. Arrest them for trespassing if they are. I mean, obviously, the details matter, but, schools such as Columbia continue to negotiate with the protesters while others are reviewing their rules to ban encampments and moving final exams to new locations. But encampments and protests continue to spring up Thursday. A tent encampment popped up at the Indiana University of Bloomington before police with shields and batons shoved into a line of protesters arresting an unknown number. You can't set up at the encampments. At the City College of New York, hundreds of students who were gathered on a lawn beneath a Harlem campus famed Gothic building erupted in cheers after a small contingent of police officers retrieved from the scene. In one corner of a quad, a security training was held among students who said they expected to be arrested in the coming hours because they're breaking the rules. Students protesting the war are demanding schools cut financial ties to Israel and divest from companies enabling the conflict. Some Jewish students say the protests have veered into anti-Semitism, which they definitely have. It made them afraid to set foot on campus, as has been pointed out, including by members of Congress. The University of Southern California announced cancellation of the May 10th graduation ceremony a day after more than 90 protesters were arrested. The university said it will still host dozens of ceremonial events, including the traditional individual school commencement ceremony. Fine. Tensions were already high after USC canceled a planned commencement speech by the school's pro-Palestinian valedictorian, citing case safety concerns. I need to know more about that before I could take a position on that. To be honest, I need to know more about the speech. I need to know more about the environment. I need to know more about the thing, right? So I don't know if this is a heckler's veto thing or not. Right? I don't know enough to have a strong opinion about that particular thing. We understand it's disappointing. However, we're adding many activities and celebrations to make this commencement academically meaningful, memorable, and uniquely USC. Okay. The Los Angeles Police Department said 93 people were arrested Wednesday during a campus protest for allegedly trespassing. One person was arrested on allegations of assault with a deadly weapon, which could be a lot of things, incidentally, what a deadly weapon is. Depending on it could be a lot of different things. At Emerson College in Boston, 108 people were arrested overnight at an alleyway encampment. Video shows police first warning students to leave, which is pretty typical. You gotta give them fair notice. Students link arms to resist, who move forcefully for the crowd and throw some protesters to the ground. As the night progressed, it got tenser and tenser. Just more cops on all sides. We felt like we're being slowly pushed and crushed. Well, you're there illegally. For me, the scariest moment was holding these umbrellas out in case we're being tear gassed and hearing them come and hearing their boots on the ground, just pounding the ground louder than we could chant and not being able to see a single person. They came in force, unsurprisingly. One of them said the police lifted her by the arms and legs and carried her away, which, they will do. They will carry you away. Along with other students, they were charged Thursday with trespassing and disorderly conduct, which sounds about right. Emerson college leaders had warned students that the alley was a public right-of-way, and city authorities had threatened to take action if the protesters did not leave. Emerson canceled classes Thursday, and Boston police said 4 officers suffered injuries that were not life-threatening due to the confrontation. The University of Texas at Austin campus was much calmer on Thursday after 57 people were jailed and charged with criminal trespass a day earlier. Given the tenor of things, I'm assuming these people were well on the wrong side of the law. I'd have to look at the details, obviously, but I'm imagining these people were well on the wrong side of the law. University officials pulled back barricades and allowed demonstrators onto the main square beneath the school's iconic clock tower. Thursday's gathering of students in some faculty protested both the war and Wednesday's arrest when state troopers in riot gear on horseback bulldozed into protesters, forcing hundreds of students off the main lawn. At Emerson University in Atlanta, local and state police swept in to dismantle a camp, although the university said protesters weren't students but rather outside activists. Thank you, Karate Cat Mom, for the 5 gift memberships. Some officers carried semi-automatic weapons, and the video showed officers using stun guns on one protester they thought they had pinned to the ground. Jail records show 22 people arrested by Emory police were charged with disorderly conduct. Here is a woman screaming because she is effing around and finding out. Police at Emory chanted slogans supporting Palestinians and opposing a public safety training center being built in Atlanta. The two movements are closely intertwined in Atlanta, where there have been years of Stop Cop City activism against the center. Well, it's a training center. So, for the cops. So, yeah, many colleges, including Harvard, were choosing not to take immediate action against protesters who'd set up tents, even though they were openly defying camping rules, because Harvard is a bunch of pussies. And some colleges were making new rules, like Northwestern University, which hastily changed its student code of conduct to bar tents on a suburban campus. George Washington University said it would move its law school finals from a building next to the protest encampment to a new location because of the noise. The U.S. Secretary of Education said the ability to embrace student voices and different perspectives was a hallmark of nation's growth, but warned authorities he wouldn't tolerate hate, disruption, threat, or violence. And I don't believe that for a second. Since the Israeli-Hamas war began, the U.S. Education Department has launched civil rights investigations into dozens of universities and schools in response to complaints of anti-Semitism. Among those under investigation are Harvard and Columbia. No surprise there. And that is the end of that particular story. Good times. Come on. In Where Exactly Is My Airport news, San Francisco has sued Oakland over a new airport name that includes the name San Francisco, which I suppose is pretty understandable, because not all London airports, for example, are located in London. Some of them are located some distance away from London. Some of the London airports are very questionable on whether or not they qualify as London. So I have a very similar problem happening here in Oakland. Is that San Francisco? Yeah, I don't know, man. San Francisco sued Oakland after their officials voted in changing the name of the city's airport to San Francisco Bay Oakland International Airport. I mean, it's not in the Bay, so there is that. Last week, the Board of Commissioners for Oakland voted to move forward with the name change and schedule a second vote. The airport is currently called Oakland International, which is much more descriptive. We hoped Oakland would come to its senses, but their refusal to collaborate on an acceptable name leaves us no choice but to file a lawsuit to protect the trademark. Funny. San Francisco is asking the court to prevent Oakland Airport from moving forward with the name change and a rule that the new name violates the trademark of San Francisco International Airport, which, I mean, I would think it's right in the name, so I would think so. The renaming plan appears intentionally designed to divert travelers who may be unfamiliar with Bay Area geography and lead them to believe that Oakland has a business relationship with San Francisco, which it does not. Oakland airport officials say they plan to name the change and defend their right to do so. Oakland's proposed renaming does not infringe on the San Francisco mark. I'm not sure about that one. We will vigorously defend our right to claim our spot on the San Francisco Bay. Well, it'd be helpful by being in the San Francisco Bay. That would be a good start. But yeah, all right. I guess it is on the other side of the bay. I guess that's fair. All right. In AI news, a coffee roastery in Finland has launched an AI-generated blend. Now, this is not the first time this has happened, to the best of my knowledge. I seem to remember that, like, IBM was experimenting with this as part of their Watson technology, like 10 years ago, with AI-generated recipes and AI-generated research as to product development. So I think IBM was doing this kind of stuff like 10 years ago, if memory serves correctly. An artisan roastery based in Finnish capital has introduced a coffee blend that's been developed by artificial intelligence in a trial, and which is hoped technology can ease the workload in a sector that traditionally prides itself on manual work. I have no problem with this. If AI can do big data, you know, this sounds great to me, right? If I were opening a brewery, for example, I'd be all about this, right? If AI can do big data and look at like different sales of different products and figure out what do people like based on what they purchase and make something that they'll like even more, I'm all about that. I really am. I'm really about that. I'm about that. Yeah. They did do a lot of stuff with Watson. Yeah, they did. It's only apt that the Helsinki-based roastery AI Iconic blend was launched this week in Finland. The blend, an AI picks mixture with 4 types of beans dominated by Brazil's velvety Fanzia Pinhall, is the end result of a joint project by Kaffa, Finland's third roasted brewery, and local AI consultancy Elev. Leveraging models akin to ChatGPT and Copilot in a very, very broad sense, the AO was tasked with creating a blend that would ideally suit enthusiast tastes, pushing the boundaries of conventional flavor combinations. Yeah, I mean, you know, fair enough. The roastery's managing director and founder told the Associated Press the two partners wanted to try how AI and its different tools could help in the coffee roasting. We basically gave descriptions of all our coffee types and their flavor to the AI and instructed to create a new blend. Okay, fine. In addition to coming up, Kaffa is big in Finland. I think it said it's the third largest, right? So, yeah. So Kaffa is the third largest coffee maker. So they are pretty big in Finland. They're the third largest. Hanf acknowledged that they were surprised that AI somewhat weirdly chose to make the blend out of 4 different types of coffee beans rather than the usual 2 or 3, which allows distinction in taste between flavors and design. After the first test roasting and blind tasting, the coffee experts agreed the text-assisted blend was perfect and there was no need for human adjustment. Fantastic. According to Elev's spokesperson, AI-conic is a tangible example of how AI can introduce new perspectives to seasoned professionals. I'm all about this. I would definitely open a brewery and have AI develop my beer for me. Because I want to succeed. The roastery hopes the trial serves as an opener between coffee professionals in Finland. The trial was the first step in seeing how AI could help us in the future. Cool. That sounds awesome. Good luck with that plan. Hope it works out for you. Okay. In questionable combination news and also strict product liability news, because there is no way this ends well. You can now own a flame-throwing dog. Here is a picture of a robot dog with a flamethrower. Okay. The company Throwflame is selling the first flamethrowing wielding robot dog called the Terminator. It boasts an arc flamethrower that delivers on-demand fire anywhere. The robot can be operated by Wi-Fi or Bluetooth and can shoot up to 30 feet. Cameras and sensors also allow for it to move autonomously throughout its surroundings. The robot apparently can avoid obstacles and leap into the air. That's not terrifying in any way. Government agencies could use it for wildlife control and prevention. It could also be used for entertaining or cleaning your driveway. The Terminator can be yours for $9,400. So if you've got an extra $10K floating around, the Terminator can be yours. I don't know about that on any level, guys. I really don't. All right. In medical malpractice news, a Houston hospital has said one of its doctors made changes to a database that made patients ineligible for liver transplants, which just seems like a reasonably big deal. The Houston hospital has halted its liver and kidney transplant program after a doctor manipulated a database for transplant patients, making them ineligible for the organ. The Memorial Hermann Texas Medical Center said in a statement Friday, an investigation found the doctor had made inappropriate changes to a database for people awaiting liver transplants. They didn't name the doctor for some reason, but the University of Texas Health Center at Houston issued a statement defending Dr. Stephen Byron, who I guess who's the guy, calling him an exceptionally talented and caring physician with survival rates that are among the best in the nation. Byron is an employee of UT Health Houston who was contracted to Memorial. UT says its faculty and staff, including Byron, are assisting with the inquiry into Memorial Hermann's liver transplant program and are committed to addressing the issue. Memorial Hermann said the doctor made changes to the donor acceptance criteria, which includes factors like age and weight. The hospital said inappropriate changes were only made to the liver transplant program, but since there's shared leadership over both liver and kidney transplants, they inactivated both. Yeah. Such allegations of manipulating the transplant waiting list can undermine public trust, you think? Without fairness, transparency, and accountability, you lose trust of patients and donors. Memorial Hermann said in a statement Thursday that the doctor in the liver transplant program admitted changing records. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says statement they are working across the department to address the matter. The Organ Procurement and Transplant Network says it cannot comment on potential or ongoing review. The UT statement said that Byron treated patients with higher than average acuity and disease complexity. All right, so I have no information about why. Was this an oopsies? Did he make a mistake? Or was this some sort of deliberate thing? Like, what the hell is going on here? You know? What the hell is going on here? Let's see if we can find out any more information. So this article says nobody has said publicly what motivations the doctor might have had. No criminal charges have yet been filed, but, you know, if he was doing it with malicious reasons, you can expect there to be charges. Potentially, depending on how aggressive the prosecutor wants to get, attempted murder. Depending on how the prosecutor's feeling that day. Three families of patients who died on the waiting list have taken legal action. There would be, okay, forget attempted murder. How about just murder? So, what is going on here is pretty important. And why? Yeah, so what happened here exactly? So I imagine the police will be involved. So anywhere from, you know, fraudulent records to like murder charges. Yeah. He was saying it so donors had to meet impossible criteria, like being over 500 pounds, so patients would never get one. But why? See, that's the thing. Why was he doing that? To increase his survival percentages? Okay, well, Sounds like the potential makings of a potential murder case to me. You know, doctor, we'd really like you to come down to the police station for a little interview. Just have a couple questions. No biggie. Just want to come down and answer a couple questions. Just a couple questions. Couple quick questions. We just have a few items of clarification we'd like to ask you, doctor, if you don't mind stepping down. Just a few little things that we'd like to clear up over here. Oof. In Harvey Weinstein news, the New York Appeals Court has overturned a conviction against the disgraced director. New York's highest court on Thursday threw out Harvey Weinstein's 2020 rape conviction with a ruling that shocked and disappointed women who celebrated historic gains during Me Too and left those who testified in the case bracing for retrial. The court found that the trial judge unfairly allowed testimony against Weinstein based on allegations that weren't part of the case, which, can be a problem. Weinstein, who is 72, will remain in prison because he's convicted in Los Angeles of another rape. But the New York ruling reopens the painful chapter. Me Too advocates notes Thursday ruling was based on legal technicality, which, yes, and non-exoneration behavior, saying the original trial irrevocably moved the cultural needle. The State Court of Appeals, which is the highest court in New York, overturned the sentence in a 4-3 decision, saying the trial court erroneously admitted testimony of uncharged alleged prior sexual acts and permitted questions about bad behavior if he had testified. It called it highly prejudicial and an abuse of discretion. Fair enough. So there you go. Weinstein has been in a New York prison where he will stay for the moment. He's not going anywhere. And he's also facing 16 years in Los Angeles, so he's not going anywhere for the near future. But he gets another try at the New York charges, I guess. So we'll see how that goes. And I appreciate the appeal court being as diligent as they are. Prior bad acts, man. Prior bad acts. 404. It's 404. Prior bad acts. And they let him in and they weren't supposed to. And it was unduly, and it was so prejudicial, which, fair enough. I mean, that, makes sense. Yeah. In unlikely bank robbers news, a 74-year-old woman who allegedly robbed a credit union may actually be a scam victim. I mean, there could be some things there, yeah. The 74-year-old woman who is alleged to have robbed a credit union may have been the victim of a scam. Ann Myers entered the R Group credit union on the 19th and demanded money while displaying a handgun. Well, that's not good. Images released by the police show Myers in a bank wearing dark gray sweater and light gray sweatpants, a patterned face mask, and glasses. Police were called to the scene. They shared photos of the robbery to identify suspects. It's not clear how they identified the woman as a suspect, but I'm sure they figured it out. Police found her in her home like an hour and a half later and arrested her. So she made it out of the bank, but she didn't make it very far. Myers admitted the crime. While she has no known criminal history, the police say that she had recently been scammed out thousands of dollars in a scam and owed monies to families and friends. That's rough. That's rough. I think maybe she told me she stole a candy bar once, but other than that, she's not stolen anything. I think she did it out of depression. The McCroskey told the news that the 74-year-old took $500 from the bank. She had apparently recently talked to her sister about robbing a bank. At the house was her silver Hyundai Elantra, which she had been driving during the robbery. McCoskey says that Myers had taken the license plate off the car and tried to remove a bumper sticker from the vehicle. Police recovered evidence from the home, including the handgun, and the weapon was loaded. She's been charged with aggravated robbery with a firearm and tampering with evidence as a first-degree felony. Yeah, she's going down. She's going down hard. So that sucks. That just sucks. She will die in prison unless the prosecutor's feeling really, really generous. That's a lot of mercy, though. That's a lot of mercy. What else is happening? Let's see. We can deal with people getting indicted relating to the 2020 election interference. Yeah. If it were just the $500, it probably wouldn't be so bad. The loaded weapon's what's going to really do her in. You know? She's probably going to do at least like 5 years, I'd imagine. In Arizona, Arizona has indicted 18 people involved in an election interference case, including Giuliani and Meadows. The Arizona grand jury has indicted the former president, chief of staff, Giuliani, and 16 others for their attempts to overturn the election. The indictment released Wednesday names 11 Republicans who submitted documents to Congress falsely declaring Trump won Arizona. I mean, you know, probably, yes. That makes sense. That's sounds like a thing that would definitely happen. You know. Okay. The identities of 7 other defendants, including Giuliani and Meadows, were not immediately released because they had not been served with the documents. Trump himself has not been charged, but is being listed as an unindicted co-conspirator. With the indictments, Arizona now becomes the 4th state where allies of the president have been charged with using false or unproven claims about voter fraud relating to the election. The indictment alludes to Giuliani as the attorney who was often identified as a mayor, and spread false allegations of the election. Another defendant is referred to as Trump's chief of staff, which describes Meadows. George Terwilliger, a lawyer representing Meadows, said he had not even seen the indictment, but if Meadows is named, it's blatantly political and politicized accusation will be contested and defeated. Good luck. Thank you for the 10 gift memberships, Sandy. The 11 people who have been nominated to be Arizona Republican electors met in Phoenix to sign a certificate saying they were duly elected and qualified, which of course they were not. The document was later sent to Congress and the National Archives, where of course it was ignored. Their lawsuit asked a judge to decertify the results that gave Biden the victory. In dismissing the case, the judge said that they lacked standing, waited too long, and failed to prove the case to court. Michigan's Attorney General in July filed felony charges that include forgery and conspiracy to commit election forgery against 16 of the fake electors. 15 have pled not guilty. One has pled guilty one has reached a cooperation deal. 3 fake electors have also been charged in Georgia alongside Trump and others in a sweeping indictment, and they have pled not guilty. Early in January, the New Mexico Attorney General said that the state's 5 Republican electors cannot be prosecuted under the current law. In New Mexico and Pennsylvania, fake electors added a caveat saying the election certificate was submitted in case they are later recognized as duly elected, which probably saved their ass. So, yeah, some people are getting indicted for the fake documents and fake things. So, yeah. So, that makes sense. So, things are not going well for them. All right. I think we have one story left. It's the Florida story. I'm seeing if there's anything else on the agenda I want to do before we leave today. Well, apparently a $1.7 million public toilet opened in San Francisco, which I don't know how much that will improve things in San Francisco. I have my doubts. I think everything is going to continue to smell like poop. People in San Francisco's No Valley celebrated the opening of the public toilet that made headlines for the $1.7 million estimate. About 100 people packed the square to celebrate the bathroom that draw international mockery for the astronomical price tag. Crawford admitted San Francisco deserved all the poop it got when the city first announced the cost. People thought it was a perfect example of governmental waste. A private company ended up donating a prefab bathroom, but the cost still ended up $200,000, so I guess it wasn't that expensive after all. So only $200,000 to install a bathroom. Well, that was donated to you. Plus, you spent $200,000. So I think San Francisco will continue to smell like poop, so I'm not sure it will do any good, but, there it is. All right, let's go ahead and... All right, we'll do this one story for counterfeits. All right. A celebrity handbag designer has been sentenced in Miami for smuggling crocodile handbags. Don't do that. A leading fashion designer whose accessories were used by celebrities from Britney Spears to the cast of Six and the City was sentenced Monday to 18 months in prison on charges of smuggling crocodile handbags from her native Colombia. Smuggling is bad. Don't do the smuggling. Nancy Gonzalez was arrested in 2022 in Colombia and later extradited to the U.S. for running a sprawling multi-year conspiracy that involved recruiting couriers to transport the bags on commercial flights on violation of U.S. wildlife laws. Yeah, don't do the smuggling. Lawyers for Gonzalez sought leniency for the celebrity daughter, describing her journey as a divorced single mother of 2 children who designed belts on a home sewing machine in Cali for friends into a fashion icon who outcompeted the likes of Dior, Prada, and Gucci. She was determined to show her children and the world that women, including minority women like herself, can pursue their dreams and also commit the smuggling. The attorney said that the 71-year-old designers already paid dearly for their crimes. The Colombian company she built, which once employed 300 people, declared bankruptcy. They also argued that only 1% of the merchandise she imported lacked authorization. Well, don't do the smuggling. Prosecutors countered that Gonzalez had acquired great wealth and an opulent lifestyle, which contrasted with the couriers she recruited to smuggle her merchandise. The couriers were instructed to say the items were gift for their relatives if asked questions. According to the testimony of co-defendants, Gonzalez, described as a micromanager, would recruit as many 40 passengers to carry 4 designer handbags on each commercial flight. In this way, she smuggled goods that were as much as $2 million. All the hides were from caiman and pythons bred in captivity. Nonetheless, on some occasions, she failed to obtain the proper import authorization. There are rules for this. And she apparently was warned in 2016 and 2017 to stop doing it, and she kept doing it. So they warned her, you're breaking the law, and she kept breaking the law. Although trade in the skins is not prohibited, they came from protected wildlife that require close monitoring under relevant conventions. So you may have been able to import them, you may not have, but you tried to bypass the rules, and that's the problem. You told people to bring them in as gifts when they weren't. You tried to go around the U.S. rules. So that is the end of that story. Don't do the smuggling. All right, so we have another story at the end of Trullo. A romance fraud scheme. Let's take a look. From Florida man. All right. A Florida man has gotten 4 years in prison for laundering in relation to a romance scheme. Yep. The scheme landed Nielsen Garcia 50 to 48 months for his role in the fraud network. 4 years. Garcia worked with 4 other people who authorities say are still at large to scam individuals out of millions and send large portions of the funds to Nicaragua. Garcia scammed $2.3 million in funds, having to return almost $500,000 after he pled guilty to conspiracy to commit money laundering. He would collect bank account information and send the money to criminal associates in Nigeria. Yep. So he fleeced some desperate women, stole their money, and sent it to Nigeria. What a jerk. In Garcia's case, he used a cryptocurrency exchange to conceal and transfer the funds in Bitcoin, which isn't necessarily the worst idea, but of course, Bitcoin does leave a trail. So if you figure it out, you can trace it because there's a ledger. The plea deal demonstrates the department's continued commitment to prosecuting transnational fraud and those who knowingly facilitate it. By facilitating concealment of the profits, third-party money launderers enable large-scale transnational fraud schemes. Yep, that sounds about right. So that is that story. And I think we will end with another Florida man story. The fun Florida man story. All right. Ooh, there's video for this one? I'm excited. Do we have video? Give me video. Come on. You say there's video, show me. Okay. All right, cool. Let's watch this thing. All right, let's see what we got. Florida man wrestling an alligator.
All right, how about this story? When Florida attacks meet the blue-collar brawler. He wrestled an 8-foot gator with his bare hands and, as Luann pointed out, his bare feet in Jacksonville. He says he was at a hockey game when he got the call to come outside and get the big reptile.
Fox 35's Hannah McKenzie explains how he captured the gator with less equipment than he probably wanted.
When a gator is making trouble in your neighborhood,
I catch alligators.
who are you gonna call? Apparently, this guy.
And I'm kind of all things Florida.
Check this out. This 8-foot gator was causing chaos near some homes in Jacksonville, going right by deputies around traffic.
Man, I get there, there's cops, there's everybody circled around this thing.
But conveniently enough, a nuisance trapper wasn't far away.
Second period ends, and I get a phone call from the state saying, hey, we have a nuisance alligator. It's an emergency call. You got to respond immediately.
Michael Dragich was at a hockey game with his kids when he got the call to help out. Dragich left the game and realized he didn't have his equipment, so he improvised.
Cop said, hey, man, you ain't got no tools? I said, I just came from a hockey game.
He just stepped in and wrestled the gator with his bare hands.
At that point, I grabbed him by the tail, kind of just moved him around a little bit, got him angry, had him expend some more energy, and I knew it was the right time. I know the body language of an alligator. Luckily, I was able to just at the right moment jump on his back.
And in case you're wondering, he went right back to the hockey game.
Dude, I left the hockey game in the second period. It took me 27 minutes to leave, catch the alligator, and make it back for the end of the second period.
Putting his adrenaline on ice to watch the third period. Hannah McKenzie, Fox 35 News.
Okay, so there's that. Florida man caught an alligator. Apparently that's what he does. Who are you going to call? This guy, apparently. Apparently he's the 911 for the police when it comes to alligators. So, yeah. Okay. Well, my friends, I think that will conclude our story time here. I think we'll conclude our story time. So I've enjoyed our time together. We will probably be on tomorrow, I would imagine, for oral arguments in the Trump case. And because I assume that they'll be posted tomorrow. I mean, obviously it's yay, and they do what they do. And usually it takes them a day or two. But, we can see what they do. Not posted yet. So if they post it tomorrow, we'll do it tomorrow. They'll probably do it tomorrow. I mean, it's a big case, but then again, it was a long oral argument, so we'll see. So we'll go from there. So I guess we'll go ahead and end the stream. Yeah. So that was fun. And we will end the stream, and I hope you had a good time. I had a good time. Until next time, my friends, I hope all is well. Cheers, my friends, for now, and goodbye.